Konnichiwa, minasan. Super Kami Guru Alucard des. Domo arigato gozaimasu. And we are back for another episode of album discussions. This is the final one in the series, at least until more albums are released. But today we will talk about my side project, the S.O.S. Brigade Quartet's fifth and final album. Now, it's kind of sad that this was the fifth and final album because they're moving and, I guess they just kind of lost the excitement of making the music. But, we had a good run. We made five great albums. And in my opinion, this was actually in many ways the most unified and best album of our group. Like, we really all got really key moments to shine with all our different skills and abilities, and everybody just kind of killed it. They did their own thing, right? So, plus, it's actually the album where other members of the group did the most vocals besides me. Like, I did a lot of vocals on this record, but then some of the other members, such as Byron and John, also did quite a few vocals on tracks. So, the album starts off with a stride piece, like a lot of the albums do, which is great. I love that. This one's called A Weird Day. So it sounds like it's a happy day, but it's got that touch of melancholy and sadness. So I was ripping the stride piano. I composed that piece. It's really nice. The album itself clocks in at an hour and 8 minutes. And as you probably noticed, all of the album titles follow a theme of seeking more knowledge. Like, a history lesson straight out of the archives in search of harmonic discoveries, music and life lessons, and then time for an exam. Applying everything we've learned on like a big crucial test, which I felt that the album really represented that quite well. So, yeah, after A Weird Day, the stride composition, we get into a more hip hop, jazzy kind of track called Major Lack of Respect, which references a song I did with Captain Hook or Little Bimboy, my Jamaican friend Kevin, back in high school, called Lack of Respect, but a revamped improvised version. And then it was really cool because with the beat of the song, I actually used the sax as like the main melody for the beat. And then I rap some crazy verses. The hook is sick. It's a representation similar to the original hook on the mixtape version I did back in high school. And then I end it with a sax solo. So, very jazzy song, really bringing the forefront of the sax into the mix. So we start off with the piano. We add the sax. So you're getting like a taste of me doing my thing. And really bringing the hip hop into it too. And then we do Rushing Recklessly, which that was all me as well, but a lot of different instruments in that, which is cool. There's the organ, there's the vibraphone, there's bass, and there's drums, which turned out really cool. And it's really like just rushing recklessly, but making a pretty melody to get the point across with little intricate like bar changes in a minute and 5 seconds long sort of time span, like rushing recklessly, but still making the beautiful jazzy melody and getting the point across. And then we get into La Vie Elle École Sensitive, which is French for the sensitive old school. So it's referencing like the old school hip hop sound, going back to the roots. We all have solos on this track, John, me, and Byron, which is really good. And then the cool thing is, it starts off with rapping back and forth between me and Byron, the bass player, and the other second main vocalist, we'll say, of the S.O.S. Brigade. So it's really cool how we go back and forth telling this story about, like, taking it back to the old school, referencing our roots. Like, there's references to Aboriginal culture, to Scottish culture, all these things. It's really great. And it's really got that old school vibe with the scratching. The solos are tight. And it's a really beautiful sort of melody that takes you like on this journey. And the whole French title was definitely like an Eric Satie-esque kind of vibe we were going for with that, because they loved the idea of my movie script, and they even said, if you ever make this movie and put it together, we'd want to like have some part in it, because this actually is a really great, fantastic idea. Byron actually loved the idea of the movie. So that's where that title comes from, Sati reference. And then we get into Brigade Swing, which is this like Latin funk, jazzy like kind of tune where we all have solos. We're representing like, like it's definitely swinging when the Brigade's like doing our thing, right? It's great. So that's the whole concept of that song. And it's very upbeat, funky, groovy, like a real dance kind of party song that I really love with the Brigade Swing. Like, you know, really getting back to that, beautiful, funky, upbeat melody, almost like a Louis Armstrong kind of vibe. I really love that about that song. And then we get into Work of Art, which was a collaboration with Retrospect, a rapper from Hamilton that I work with quite often. He's been on songs like Keep the Dream Alive, Gymnopedy Trilogy, All I Want, Watch Out, and a bunch of other songs as well. In fact, he'll be on the new album, A Point to Prove, on the self-titled track for that. Now, what I love about this is my lyrics were great. His lyrics were great. The hook really gets the point across. And it's so funny because my favorite line of that is even haters add it to the cart. Because it's like, even if they're hating, they're like, I want to hate on this guy. I want to hear what I could hate on, right? So they're curious, right? So they add it to the cart. Whether they buy it or not, I'm kind of leaving that open for audience interpretation, but they consider it. They might hate me. They might hate the band. They might hate the music. They might hate Retrospect, whatever. They might hate all these things. But even haters add it to the cart because they're like, shit, I got to hear it so I have something to actually hate on. So they're considering buying it and might buy it, right? So either way, it's good business for us. It's so good. It gets their attention one way or another. And then it's like the work of art, like the whole Van Gogh, Rembrandt, like painting philosophy. And then because we're so lyrical, we kill it and all that. That's why we have the outro where the pianist who used to play with Art Tatum was good friends with him. They played together in Buffalo, New York. He's giving a story where he talks about like washing the slate clean, like he washed them all up, he washed them away. Like that's how lyrically I bring my style to the music, and that's how Retrospect did it on the track. We just washed them away, right? So it was killer. It was a work of art. And then next we get into You'll Never Know, which is a very almost melancholic yet kind of strange and mysterious sounding instrumental composition because we use synthesizers for this to give it kind of like a unique, mysterious, going into unknown territory kind of vibe. And then we all rip solos on it. And it's really cool. And it's just a very mysterious groove that would just get the audience's attention listening to it. Because it's like, what kind of emotion am I supposed to be feeling? Because it's so many emotions, and hence you'll never know. You'll never know quite what you're feeling listening to it because it's so strange and melancholic and kind of mysterious, right? And then, of course, Byron at the end has this very funny outro where he's like, I thought Alucard was a rapper. That was some straight up jazz, because it was very jazzy. It was just like a, pure instrumental composition, which was really nice. And then we get into the track Life Goes On, which has the intro by my alter ego, Kira L, formerly known as Killa Mo, when he did Last Days with me on the Baptism of CRM, my unreleased Seventh-day Adventist gospel rap album. So he changed from Kira L. He appeared on the song King of Hamilton, and he also did the intro on My Unique Valentine. I don't bring that alter ego out all the time, but I do once in a while just to kind of add mysterious and sort of bring a new character into the mix. So it's always very cool to have him. Now, this is a very upbeat, positive, like kind of sad sort of song. Like life goes on, there's sad things that you go through, but it goes on, and it's the hope that good things will come along the way. And what I love about this song is it's a reference to the Tupac song Life Goes On in some ways, but it's also saying like, even though we struggle to get along, life goes on. We got to find the strength to carry on, all these things, right? Like you got to keep going, hoping for the best in the future, right? And they actually, John and Byron, both did backup vocals for the Life Goes On. I did the rest of the chorus, but they did the Life Goes On part with me. So we all contributed vocals on that, and we all did solos as well. So it's a very beautiful piece. Now, with a lot on this album, because the bass is kind of a lower instrumentation, what I would actually do, and I did a lot of live drumming for a lot of the S.O.S. Brigade Quartet albums, like just on the drum pad on my phone, right? I would actually play like the drum beats to give us some additional drums, really have that percussion laid out. But then what I would usually do for Byron to really get the spotlight when he's ripping the bass solos, because he gets a lot of bass solos on this record, I would drop out the main upbeat, more powerful instrumentation and just keep the drums going, sometimes playing in a very jazzy, free way, just to give him room to do his solo, let him like take the groove of the thing, and then nothing else interferes with him, really getting his chance to shine, which turned out really good in this case. And then we get into Invisible Twilight, where it's me playing the chorus with the sax. It's an instrumental piece. I'm playing along with the chorus, and then it goes Byron solo, John solo, chorus, then Byron solo, John solo, chorus, and then I rip the saxophone solo to end it. So it's everybody gets chances for multiple solos on this record, and then I get one big long solo, but I'm also playing the chorus in between the other solos. So it's very cool in that regard. And then we get into the more like Black Sabbath blues rock tune, Root of All Evil, which came of an idea when I was talking to bass player Byron and guitar player John about like how money is important. It's in circulation. It's a crucial thing we need in this world, but it really is the root of all evil because it corrupts people. And if it's not used for good things, productive things, it really could have a bad effect on things in the world in general. So it really is the root of all evil, because what we're saying, the root of all evil isn't the money of itself, but it's the corruption and the power that actually creates the evil. It's the root of all evil is in the money, but it's more in the power that comes with the money. And very bluesy Black Sabbath kind of tune. It's nice. It's also talking about like, why do we put so much value on it? Because in reality, it's just colored paper. If you're in Canada, you know what I'm talking about, because all our paper money is all different colors. There's greens for 20s, blues for 5s, purples for 10s, 50s are red, and like hundreds are like this yellowish light brown, right? So yeah, it's just colored paper. Some people have called it monopoly money, which, you know what, I get where they're making the joke, and it's not a fair and unfair critique of our money, our currency here. It's very true. And then yeah, we all get different solos on it. We all ripped solos. It was very good. And then we get into the next track, track 11, Prelude to Scrambled Eggs Dedication. Now, when we were making this track, we had finished up a good chunk of it. It was an instrumental piece. I didn't know what we were going to call it, but then John went to go make some eggs and bacon and eggs, right? And then Byron was like shouting something at him, and he was like, "Oh, make sure my scrambled eggs are extra fluffy." And I was like, "Oh my god, that's so funny. We should use that." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know if like John might be mad if I say that." And I said, "Well, how about we rephrase it? Because just the way you said that was kind of funny. But if you don't want to make John mad, then just say, I want my scrambled eggs extra fluffy for my dedication," because he was still sitting up there working on tracks while John went to go cook food, right? So like the joke, like, I want my scrambled eggs extra fluffy for my dedication, right? So we use that as the outro. And then of course we used all sorts of different solos, played the vibraphone, things like that. Like on Rushing Recklessly, we used drums, bass, organ, and vibraphone. So yeah, on this, we had the scrambled eggs. Like the reference to the Frasier theme song is why there's vibraphone on it, because that's what it reminded me of, kind of, was the Frasier theme song, right? And then because he said that, I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. Prelude to Scrambled Eggs Dedication. And that became the track. So very funny, interesting experience how that one came about. Because when we made the song, I didn't even have a title. It was just an instrumental composition. And then as soon as he said that, I was like, Oh, the vibraphone. And then that line, I'm like, it's like the Frasier theme song, Prelude to Scrambled Eggs Dedication. Because the Frasier theme songs toss salads and scrambled eggs, right? So I was like, oh shit, yeah, that works. And that's how that track came about. And then the next one is called Cigarettes Trilogy, which features Little Buckingham. And the reason it's a trilogy is because it's 3 different songs almost about the same concept in one. Like it's a 6 minute and 30-second long song. But the first part is John and Byron actually rapping the first half of it, like a good chunk of it. They're going back and forth, just giving their opinions on the good sides of cigarettes, like the enjoying it, like the relaxing, the feeling like a boss, the cool part. The negative parts talk about like how it could give you cancer, how it costs money, these type of things, right? Like we all smoke. We smoked weed, we smoked cigarettes, we drank, it was always a party at the house when we were recording, man. We would just bang out song after song. We would sometimes do like 3, 4, 5 songs a day, man. Like we were killing it. And then, just smoking away, smoking my life away, like the song suggests. Smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, drinking. And then the second act of the song, which features Little Buckingham, is him making almost like a parody of what a cigarettes commercial would be if there was this crazy brand of cigarettes that would like kill you instantly, like 1,000 times more deadly than like the regular cigarettes, right? So it's like people, they have the warning signs on the cigarettes and all that in the packs, right? It was actually inspired by a Dennis Leary joke, but I was like, what if you had cigarettes just called tubers and like they might kill you and give you all these horrible things right away, right? And then but the whole idea of it being a parody is I did stress like some of the horrible things that could happen as a result of smoking, but then I said things that were almost absurd and ridiculous in the middle of it, like sex change, things like that, like things that would never happen logically. Like you'd be like, what the fuck? That shit happened from smoking. But it's like they're tubers. They're that crazy. Like you would not want to smoke them, right? Because they put warning labels on the packs, yet people still smoke. But I'm like, if you had an advertisement like that, I don't think anybody would really want to go for it because they'd be like, what the fuck, man? That's too crazy, man. So that's the second act. And then the third act is my own interpretation because they rapped in the beginning, I rap in the end, and then I rip the saxophone to kind of finish it off and tie the third act of the trilogy all together, right? And then we get into Nessie and Lake Loch Ness, which I used my phone to create an oboe sound effect. We used strings, and I gave like kind of the vibe of like a jazzy piece, but also a rap hip hop song about like there she blows, Nessie and Lake Loch Ness, like doing a Scottish accent and getting into character, like about the Loch Ness monster, right? Like kind of a random song to throw into the mix, but just the idea of the Loch Ness monster has always fascinated me, so I wanted to make a song about it. So that became that, right? And very, very cool song. Now, that one was more of a solo track because nobody else worked on that one. Some songs were with this record, but a lot of them actually had input from the other members. Next track we get into is another longer piece, 6 minutes and 39 seconds, where we all rip solos. I also play organ solos and vibraphone solos on top of the sax. It's purely instrumentation. I believe there's also a drum solo on it. I could be mistaken, but John and Byron all did solos on this, and we called it What's Up World, which the crazy chaotic nature of it resembles jazz and bebop, but also it's kind of got that intensity like metal, which it really is a reference and sort of a homage to the Japanese metal band Maximum the Hormone and their song What's Up People. It's like instead of What's Up People, What's Up World, right? So like also a reference to like the opening Death Note theme, the first one before Maximum Hormone did the ending and opening theme song. The songs were done by Nightmare, and the song was called The World, the first opening. So I took them, What's Up People, The World, and made What's Up World as sort of the concept. And we made it this crazy, wild, jazzy, bebop, almost metal intense kind of jazzy instrumental composition. And then we get into Friend Zone, which is this very short minute and 18 seconds, where I was inspired to do this, and I literally just came up with this on the spot and recorded it, added some instrumentation after, because I was pissed off with getting friend zoned by girls I liked at the time. And it was very funny, but it was very true. And like, I was just irritated, and because I was just kind of going on a rant, and I was like, this is funny. Like, I'm thinking like all the things I was thinking in my head before I said them. I'm like, I'm thinking some funny shit. I should just record it and just vent it all out. So that became Friend Zone. Very accurate to like the frustration behind that concept. And then the next track is John's Metal Blues, where John gets to really take the lead and have a couple solos, whereas I just play the chorus. And the outro is done by Denine and Vlad the Impaler, where they're talking about how, like, John just sounds like he's playing straight up metal on this track because he's killing it. He's ripping some metalish kind of solos, but it's a jazz band album. So it's kind of the concept of, you know, jazz and metal mixing together, which you hear elements of that on What's Up World and Root of All Evil. Now, the track is actually called John's Metal Jazz Blues for that reason. So that's kind of like John's, real chance to shine in the spotlight, because that was his thing. And then the next track, which one of my favorites, and it's so funny because it's actually the first, well, not the first track, because he did Midnight Train Funk as well, but it's one of the few tracks where Byron did all the vocals on it. He rips the bass solo in the beginning and all that, and then it cuts into him singing this like rocky blues kind of tune, Trees Falling. Now with Trees Falling, he gave me the idea of that. Like, I wrote the lyrics, but he gave me the idea because he originally wanted to make a parody of Tom Petty's Trees Falling. Free Falling, right? So and call it Trees Falling. But what I said was, I don't want to get sued or whatever. If we go taking the song, we might get copyrighted. They might not want to let us put it out there on a record. So I'm like, why don't we write like a completely different song that's kind of funny, that follows the idea you talk about? Because I like the idea of trees falling and all this, like the way he described like his vision of the parody. I liked it, and I got ideas of how we could actually make just a blues song like what he was talking about. So I wrote the lyrics, he sings them like, trees falling, free balling. If I'm on a sailboat, the sea's calling. He's just going with the flow, right? We all ripped solos on it. It was pretty awesome. And then, yeah, Byron's he's killing the vocals. And then at the end, he says the really funny line, which ties the whole song together of being stoners, right? So funny, because at first you think like just normal trees falling, but then he adds the metaphor, the analogy, like, yeah, those trees are falling into my bong to smoke. And that's just the icing on the cake. I love that song. And Byron just killed it. He really took the lead as the vocalist on that track. And that was really like, you know what I mean? He was very good with his vocals because he sang them very rocky and bluesy. Like, he didn't sing them bad. They were actually very good for the style of rock and blues music, and even jazz. Like, he had that kind of voice for it. So it worked really well with that blues, rock, jazz kind of vibe. And then he adds the humor to it, which is a part of his character. He's naturally very funny. I loved hanging out with Byron. Like, we had some good times. Like, he was always the really funny one in the group, right? Like, the three of us. I'm pretty funny sometimes, so I'm told. John was very serious and dedicated, but we needed that to like round off. Like, I'd say on the middle ground, sometimes funny, sometimes very serious and dedicated, the one organizing everything together. Byron's like the really extreme, laid back, cool, funny kind of persona. And then John's the very serious, dedicated, like ripping the guitar kind of musician. So, it's a very good contrast of each member in the group. So yeah, just, really giving Byron that chance to shine was a great achievement with that one. And then the next track we get into, Lucky Seven's riff. This composition was completely constructed originally by Byron. He played out some bass because he had an idea. He's like, I want to rip something. I have a good riff for something. And he's like, and I'm like, what are we gonna call it? He's like, Lucky Seven's riff, right? Something like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we can work with that. So I recorded his, bass, added some other instrumentation to it, we added our parts or whatever. And then I was watching an old Nicholas Brothers movie, and they were singing about lucky numbers, and I was like, oh, lucky sevens. I'm like, I'm gonna use that. We're gonna use that almost like an old school sample kind of thing. We'll throw that to like kind of tie the concept of the song together, right? So we did that, and then it gives it this jazzy blues kind of lucky sevens vibe. It was really sick. But yeah, that one was actually almost all Byron's idea. I just added other ingredients to the mix to emphasize what he had laid out. But the first thing recorded for that was actually Byron's bass on that song. So that actually was mostly Byron. I just, added a little magic touch in certain areas to emphasize the point of what he was going for. And then we get into You Promised Me, in brackets, You'd Marry Me, which was the saddest, darkest, most bluesiest song I ever made. And one of the best songs the band ever made, but one of the best songs I ever worked on because of the realism. Like, it's very dark subject matter, but it's almost got like a Lily Allen vibe because the beat actually has this upbeat, funky groove to it, but almost like this sad kind of melancholic tone to the melody as well, right? But the song was about how my ex Haruna, which I loved very much, she was married. I was kind of the affair, but she promised me like that she'd marry me if her husband divorced or died. Now she's saying it will never happen, even though he committed suicide, which he did. And it broke my heart. Like, it was very painful, but I'm like, I need to write about that. Like, I need to tell my story. And I did, because I really loved her. And I tried to take away the positive look that, one day when I become more famous, I become a big star, then she's going to miss me. She's going to want me back, and she's going to regret that, like, she left me the way she did. But I'm still saying, like, I forgive her because, I really loved her. And the fact that she promised me she'd marry me, that really broke my heart. And I'll always like hold on to that pain because it's like a similar concept that I did with the Impulse album, where I did the song Kuroi Namida, Black Tears, to translate, ended negativity, where it was like, I'm going to forever, like, have black tears from this, because I would say there's two people. I had 4 girlfriends in my life. I've been with 25 women in total, but 4 serious relationships, right? And a lot of them were one night stands or short flings, or, it was just a moment of weakness. You do your thing, you get some, right? There's many ways you could do that. Escorts, friends with benefits, etc. But there were 4 serious relationships. Now, the sad part about that is I could say I only loved 2 of them. I didn't fully love looking back because I don't really regret it. I don't miss it. I look at it as it was for the best with my first girlfriend, Bria, which was on and off for 4 years. She cheated on me with my best friend on my birthday. So that broke my heart. That was the end of that. And then my ex, Rahima, after that, she was kind of crazy and attacked my arm with a knife. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't good things about those relationships. There were times where I really cared for Bria and cared for Rahima. And you know what? I will honestly say Rahima was a lot better of a girlfriend in some ways than Bria. However, Rahima did do some very questionable things and was kind of intense and scary at times to deal with. And that's really why the relationship fell apart. Plus, she was really clingy and possessive, whereas Bria was the opposite. She was very distant and would just kind of use me when she felt like it, right? But with Ayane and Haruna, I really loved them because I felt like I had finally had what I wanted when I was with them, because I had that piece of Japan that, even though Japan was far away from me and I'd always wanted to go there, I want to live there, all that, I had that piece of Japan with me, which meant a lot to me. And Ayane did a lot for me. Even though it was a short 6-month relationship, she got me so many things, which I still have a lot of them. I still treasure them. And I really loved being with her. Like, sexually, she was one of the best I'd ever been with. As far as like when her memory wasn't foggy and she wasn't having like a fit out of her disorders, she was very kind and sweet and affectionate too at times. Like, there was a time I was crying and she actually would stroke my hair and I was laying in her arms and she'd say, like, oh, it's okay, baby, I'm here, I'm here, and things like that, things that touch you, that leave that emotion, that you'll always remember the good and love them for that, despite the bad that happened. Even though she took $500, ran off to America to be with another man, I still love her, and that's why Black Tears, like forever shedding tears for somebody that meant that much to me. Now with Haruna, it was similar because she helped me make that first album. Without her, I wouldn't have even made that first album. She actually lent me the money that I needed to finish that album up. I paid her back, obviously. I had to pay her back in installments, half at a time, right? But I did pay her back. But I would have had no way to actually finish that album. And I made her the song as the result. And then she did the intro, the outro of Impulse, my first album, and then really tying the concept together. And then she did the intro on SKGA, which was great. She came to Canada, went to the studio at my old high school with me. And the fact is, she was the only girl I ever kissed inside my high school, or at my high school, you could say. I never kissed any girls when I was actually at high school. So I even joked with her. I said, "You're now officially the only girl I ever kissed in high school." And like, I never actually kissed a girl in high school, so it was cool. So I kissed her in the recording booth just to actually have that achievement under my belt. It was exciting. But going to see all the things, we went to Niagara Falls, we went up the mountain. I really loved spending time with her, and the way she would always call me, we'd talk. She was, very into having sex with me, especially because, I was the younger, attractive guy. She was married, but, in her mind, I was this young, attractive stud compared to her husband. So it was a lot better. And, she was very fun, easygoing, open minded. And it's the things like when I was not feeling well once, she'd make me miso soup and like took care of me. Like, those things, I'll always miss them. I'll cherish them. And that's why, like, You Promised Me You'd Marry Me is such a sad song, because it's letting go of what was the best relationship of my life. And it's something that pains me because I really loved it. And it's like the only hope and optimism moving forward is, someday, hopefully, I'll find a relationship that has the good qualities of that, if not better, better, and that there will be more loyalty, more support, and that they won't leave me like they did, like Haruna did, right? So next we get to the final track in the album, which is sort of that hopeful, optimistic feeling once again, which is a reference to Look for the Silver Lining by Chet Baker. So I did Silver Linings from Good Bong Tokes, which is a completely solo track, and it's basically me ripping the sax for a good chunk of it and then playing the piano with some bass and some drums and all that, just to kind of round the song off and give it like a nice polished, upbeat yet kind of melancholic vibe to end the album on, since it's the end of the album, time for an exam, the final exam, staying positive even though we get to the end of our journey. Which, like I said, it was a great experience to work with these guys. I loved it. We all had some really good experiences. I really loved working with them, and in fact, I'm gonna miss them when after they move or whatever. And honestly, I wish I could keep making music with them, because it was a different experience than making music by myself. What I will say is, when I'm making music by myself, I have all the control. I could just try anything. But having input from them, bouncing ideas off them, getting ideas from them, all these things, these albums that we made as the S.O.S. Brigade Quartet will always be different from any album I ever make, because it's three different personalities and three different characters you have in the mix, contributing to the uniqueness in the sound and the vibe of the record. So that's what was great. And like I said, with Time for an Exam, it really is the most unified record, where everybody had their chance to shine. Everybody did quite a lot on this record to really, show their own skills and abilities. And it really is the combination of all three of our personalities that make this record. And it's great. And if ever they come back or would want to record another album again, I'd be very open to it. I'll put it this way: I would never close the door fully on wanting to make music with them. I understand they got to move, they might not want to do it anymore right now, but if they ever did again, I would honestly love to, you know, make another album with them. Just especially knowing how great Time for an Exam was as our final and fifth record. It was the best. Like, we kept growing. Every album we got like more true to our sound, more true to our character, more unique. We kept raising the bar, right? So it's like if we ever did make a sixth album, we'd probably take it to a whole new level because we did every time. And that's why Time for an Exam. This is the exam, putting everything we've done in the first five and a half records, we'll say, because High Standards is kind of like half of an album, and we put it into full fruition with Time for an Exam. And it's a really great record. I would hope everybody would check it out. And I actually forgot to leave a link. I usually do this with my videos in the description. I usually leave in the description a link to listen to it on Spotify or iTunes and all that. So what I'm going to do is, actually, after I conclude this broadcast, I'm going to actually edit the description of this video and put that link in there in case anybody wants to hear it. As I encourage with everybody, like, please continue to support the releases so we can keep making music. All your assistance with this helps. It helps a great deal with mastering, making new music. And even with my new albums, I could really use some financial help to try and, you know, get closer to completing it. So if you people, you know, out there as fans would love to check it out, keep listening to it, share it, support. You could donate to my PayPal as well, which I always accept. I'll leave a link for that too in the description. But I appreciate all the support. And since this will be the last album discussion for a while till we have a new record, I guess we will conclude it there and just say, Domo arigatou gozaimasu, minasan. Sayonara, Super Kami Guru Alucard. Peace out. Matane.